The carnivore diet is becoming more and more popular. What seemed like a crazy niche idea a few years ago has now established itself among the ranks of other popular diet trends like paleo, keto, or low carb. Even more interesting is the fact that some of the most outspoken proponents of this diet are ex-vegans. In this video, I want to explain the one hidden nutrient deficiency that drives the vegan to carnivore pipeline. At the end of the video, you will also learn the reason liver is suddenly a new staple food among carnivores. Let's get started. Okay, so a couple of years ago, this carnivore thing took off like a rocket. From what I can remember, the first big proponent of it was Jordan Peterson. As his online presence grew, so did the interest in his lifestyle. I remember him talking on the Joe Rogan podcast about all the health problems he had and how he could really only consume red meat and small amounts of broccoli. And as far as I can tell, it was actually his daughter that got him on the carnivore diet. Both felt a lot better on it, and obviously I'm happy for them. After that, you would see more and more influencers talking about a mainly meat-based diet and how great they felt with it. What really caught my attention, though, was the large number of ex-vegans that would talk about it on forums or on YouTube. They would often praise the carnivore diet as the best thing that ever happened to them and that they would never want to go back. Now, at this point, I need to say one thing. This video is not meant as a diss for vegans or an ad for carnivores. I don't follow either of the two, and this channel isn't really about one specific diet. But I still want to understand their nutrient profile and want to be able to explain why this is happening, why so many ex-vegans are now switching to a carnivore diet. Because this is probably one of the most drastic changes that I've witnessed in the nutrition community. And I want to be able to understand what's going on here. But before we get there though, let me give you a quick rundown of the most important pillars of the carnivore diet. Similar to the paleo community, it is very critical of the diet changes that happened around 10,000 years ago when humans went from hunter-gatherers to become agrarian settlers who also started farming and cultivating crops. Unlike paleo, however, carnivores take this idea to the extreme and prefer to eat mostly, if not only, meat and animal-based products. Examples of recommended foods include fatty meats, including both muscle and organ meats, seafood, certain types of high-fat dairy, which also mostly should be raw, and usually also eggs. Foods that are generally excluded are grains, plant foods, so fruits and vegetables, sugars, both added and natural, and also nuts, seeds, and legumes. Now, obviously, no two carnivore diets will be completely the same, but they will generally end up somewhere along the lines of what I just described. But back to the main question, why are we seeing so many ex-vegans now go completely carnivore? What you have to understand is that these two opposing diets logically also have opposing nutrient profiles. And this goes especially for their zinc-copper ratio. Plant-based diets are very high in copper because of the grains and legumes they include, and also low in zinc because they don't include red meat and are also high in phytates, which bind to zinc more than they bind to copper and interfere with mineral absorption. Meat-heavy diets like carnivore are the complete opposite. They're high in zinc because of all the red meat and generally low in copper unless you also eat liver regularly, which I will get to later in the video. If you watched some of my other videos, you will know of the importance of a balanced zinc-copper ratio for your health. Imbalances can lead to things like mental issues, skin problems, and hormonal problems. Both nutrients are part of so many enzymes that it's almost impossible to name them all. And nowadays, a lot of people are copper dominant. The reasons for this can be copper piping, low zinc because of food processing, copper IUDs and birth control, and also chronic stress, because the sympathetic nervous system favors copper, retains copper, and tends to eliminate zinc. Again, I go over this in much more detail in my other videos and also explain all the different protocols that help you optimize your copper metabolism. But what you need to understand is that the consequences of a zinc-copper imbalance can be very drastic. For example, you can end up with adrenaline dominance, estrogen dominance, chronic fatigue, and more. A few years ago, most people would have looked at you weird when you told them about all the issues that were related to copper imbalances. It was mostly a thing talked about in holistic health circles. But even medical research seems to be catching on now, with studies linking excess copper to depression and even higher risks of Alzheimer's. The problem with copper issues is that they often only show up years later. For example, when someone goes on a high copper diet, initially they usually feel great because copper is a stimulating nutrient. It is involved in energy production and the conversion of dopamine to adrenaline. But if at some point your body is not able to effectively eliminate all the excess copper, then you can potentially crash. At that point, all the benefits from copper reverse. Now, one disclaimer, this doesn't happen to everyone. There are many people who live healthy and happy lives on a high copper diet, such as vegan diets. They are usually people with strong liver functions because the liver is the main organ involved in the excretion of unnecessary excess copper. But there are other people, be it for genetic or environmental reasons, who tend to accumulate copper more and more. I was one of them. If they continue on a high copper diet, their problems will get worse over time. But if they switch to the opposite diet, in this case carnivore, their nutrient intake also changes. They go from a high copper, low zinc diet to a high zinc, low copper diet. This can bring on crazy changes. Now the body finally has the nutrients necessary to keep copper in check. Not just the zinc, but also a lot of preformed vitamin A, retinol, that you find in animal foods. It's important for the production of ceruloplasmin, which is one of the main proteins for copper metabolism. So slowly they will feel better because unknowingly they fix their nutrient deficiencies and imbalances. So that's the first part of what's going on, at least for people with copper overload who then went on a carnivore diet. But what role does liver play in all of this? You might have noticed that recently liver is starting to pop up as a superfood amongst carnivores. Can we also explain this trend with the nutrient profile of liver? I believe we can. There's a great interview with Dr. Leland Stillman, which I will link, who summarizes the phenomenon in a few sentences. He says, "I find it suspicious that a couple of years ago, the carnivore thing took off like a shot. The carnivore diet is high in zinc and low in copper if you don't eat liver. 2 or 3 years into the carnivore craze, all of a sudden everyone is recommending liver. Could it be that recommending the carnivore diet created this massive amount of zinc excess and copper deficiency? All of a sudden, these influencers are figuring out, I feel better when I eat beef liver. They are normalizing the zinc and copper ratio in their diets again with the liver." So basically his argument is that the carnivore diet fixed their copper toxicity, but over time it overcompensated. Keep in mind that if you eat a lot of red meat every day, you can easily take in 20, 30, or maybe even 40 milligrams of zinc per day. Meat also has a lot of iron, which is another copper antagonist. Over time, these two together can deplete your copper levels below what is optimal. So adding liver to their meal plan brought back some foods high in copper. Of course, everyone's experience switching from a vegan to a carnivore diet will be different. Again, this video is not meant to discredit them. I just wanted to highlight one possible nutritional shift that explains these recent trends. A lot of influencers preach one specific diet because it helped them feel better, so they think their experience applies to everyone else. But saying one diet is right for everyone is like saying one shoe size is right for everyone. Instead, you always need a meal plan that is tailored to your individual needs and preferences. On my channel, I try to help you with setting up your diet and supplement regimen, so definitely be sure to check my videos out if you're interested. I hope you like this video, and I see you in the next one.